Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. One of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we have a whole lot to unpack about this Bears victory, much more than you'd think to expect from a Bears victory. And we have the Brewers not doing the Cubs any favor, but the Cubs taking matters into their own hands. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. So if you love hockey and you love the Blackhawks, but you find it very cost prohibitive to take your whole family to see a Blackhawks game at the United Center, well, fear not. You can head on over to the beautiful BMO Harris Bank Center in lovely downtown Rockford, which is less than an hour and a half from the city. And you can check out the Ice Hogs and the future of the Blackhawks for very, 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 very cost-effective type money. So looking at starting at $10 per ticket. So do yourself a favor. Head on over to icehogs.com. Get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex.
You know, I'm pretty happy overall for this show, even though there's still some really weird feelings here about this Bears game. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, I've got a lot of feelings. I'm
thrilled we won, but, you know.
Yeah, maybe we should talk Cubs first and just get that out of the way. And
why not?
You know what? Actually, let's go White Sox first. Hawk Harrelson is done. Adios there, Hoss. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you.
You know, I gotta admit, it's kind of weird. You know, like I was watching, you know, obviously both the Bears and the Cubs today. And for most of the Cubs game, I watched the Cubs feed because, you know, I'm a Cubs fan. But I did have to tune in to the final inning to listen to Hawk for one last time, just to kind of see what it was like. You know, clearly he was emotional, and it was just kind of weird. Like, man, he's done. Never again. Now, he kind of talked crap about the Cubs beforehand, but, you know, whatever. So it was really nice to see a pretty good win. But, you know, it was weird. It's like, man, you're never going to hear this live again. Whether that's good or bad, you know, that's up to you. But it was kind of weird.
For me, it was hilarious that at the exact moment that the alderman is trying to present an award to Hawk Harrelson, Kyle Schwarber hits a home run. It just ruins it.
And that was a bomb. Like, that was gone the millisecond it left the bat.
Yeah, that was one where he could have showboated because there was no chance that was not going out. Gale force wins or not, that was going out.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was what, halfway up the bleachers there at Guaranteed Rate Field? I mean, that was a bomb. I think it was like 440 some feet, something in that ballpark. So yeah, that was a blast.
Yeah, that went out like a Glenn Allen Hill throw from the outfield goes in.
Yeah. You know, that was a weird ball game because the Cubs pretty much dominated, but I think they stranded something like 13, 14 men on base. So, like, they could have easily won that game, like, 15-1. But, you know, they didn't score a lot of runs after the first few innings. It was just kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, they got that big lead right off the bat, and I I forgot. I saw what the runners in scoring position batting was, and it was atrocious, which has been an epidemic of the Cubs all season long.
Yeah, and luckily it didn't really matter because once again, Kyle Hendricks was just absolutely dealing again. I mean, this back-to-back starts, he's gone into the eighth inning and given up one run or less.
Yeah, his stats have been absolutely ridiculous. Over his last 7 starts, he's got a 1.55 ERA, 46.1 innings pitched, 36 hits, 6 walks, 36 strikeouts, and a .9 whip.
You're seeing him miss bats again, and you're seeing the command is there. I mean, they're not hitting him hard. They're, either softly tapping it or they're just swinging and missing. And he's putting all those pitches in the strike zone or right on the border. Like, his command is pinpoint great right now. And you hope he could keep that up into the regular season. I know, sorry, we're kind of trailing off from White Sox to Cubs, but yeah, I mean, I really had to point that out.
So I saw a tweet that was factually true, mean-spirited, but still kind of funny. It was in the second half of this season, Jake Arrieta's ERA is a 5.19, and Yu Darvish is 0. Way to go, Theo.
Ooh. Well, I will say this. Jake Arrieta has shown a lot of cracks in the second half. And as a Jake fan, I hate to see it, but, I really believe that Theo saw that coming. We've seen regression from Jake the past year or so before he went to the Phillies. And, there's a whole debate over the offer that they gave Jake. They said, take it or leave it. I think it's pretty obvious that they wanted Yu Darvish from the beginning.
And regardless of what happened with Yu Darvish, I mean, it's a shame, but it doesn't change the fact that they were right on the money with Jake Arrieta. So that's the decision they absolutely have to make correctly, because when you have a pitcher that's outside your organization and you're evaluating them for A, health, B, how they'll fit into your organization, and C, projecting how they're going to look, there's a lot of variables in there. When you've got the pitcher in-house, you should be able to take a lot of those variables out and really be able to evaluate them. And the biggest factor in that is just making sure that you do it from without emotion. You just look at it very factual. And Theo and
that's
Jed,
what Theo and Co do. That's what they do.
Then that's what they did in the situation, is they realized that Jake Arrieta was not going to be the Jake Arrieta of old. And I know he put up a few starts early in the season that looked good, and a lot of Cubs fans who didn't want Jake to go wanted to relive the old days, which weren't that old, but you know what I'm saying is they really rode that hard, but they kind of went silent over as the season went on, and especially in the second half when you didn't see a lot of good starts. And it's good and bad that you didn't see Arrieta in that series against the Phillies, because I think a lot of Cubs fans would have hammered home that it was the good choice not to bring him back. And this is an independent decision over what happens with Yu Darvish. Completely independent.
Yeah, exactly. If you look at his stats overall this year, a 3.94 ERA, last year is 3.53. But you look at the fielding independent pitching, last year was 4.16, this year it's 4.15. And you figure he's got one start left. I mean, the fielding independent pitching, the whip is 1.3 if you round up this year. Last year it was 1.22. You're seeing that trend again, and a trend in the wrong way you don't want to see it in. I think it's pretty obvious, and they saw it too, obviously, Theo and Jed, that his prime was from 14 to 16, and the Cubs are incredibly lucky to have gotten that from him. Incredibly lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. And, partially is, I mean, and this is not a knock on the Phillies. I think they've got a good team on their hands, a good young team that's going to make some noise in the coming seasons. But defensively, they're nowhere near as good as the Cubs.
No.
So when you have a pitcher that, when Jake was dealing, when he looked like Bob Gibson, regardless of what the fielding looks like, he was dominating. But when Jake had to switch up kind of the way he pitched, he had to rely some on the defense, and that was going to take a toll on his pitching when he went to a team that, had an inferior defense to the one he was on.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, his strikeouts per 9 this year are 7.3. Last year, it was 8.7. The year before that, it was 8.7. His Cy Young year was 9.3. And 2014, it was 9.6. So you go from nearly a 10 strikeouts per 9 down to 7.3. I'm not saying 7.3 is terrible, but considering where he was, that's a significant dip.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big precipitous drop, is 10 strikeouts a game to 7. That's a big drop. And, we talked before about when he lost a little bit of his fastball, like the velocity, and like, okay, well, some people were saying not a big deal, and others were saying that's a big sign. And it's turning out that it's age is catching up to him, and he's not old, and he keeps himself in shape, but you could see the writing on the wall that his ability in the MLB was waning.
Yeah, and it's not to say he's going to be, terrible or anything, or, not at least serviceable, but you're not going to get what you had.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sometimes it's about changing the way you pitch. If you can induce a lot of weak ground balls rather than getting strikeouts, develop another pitch. There's things you can do. I mean, we wrote off Justin Verlander, and that was, that was way too soon. And he had a big drop in his velocity, and the command was gone, and he was able to figure everything out. So maybe Jake figures it out, but statistics are pointing towards this is just a decline in a pitcher at a certain age.
Yeah, and again, I think that's really why they went for Yu Darvish instead.
But yeah, I mean, sort of back to the Cubs. We talked about they had a tough series with the White Sox coming up, and we're coming down to the wire, and the series has been tighter than we would like. The Brewers were able to do us a little bit of a favor, and other than a bad first game of the series, the Cubs bounced back to take 2 out of 3 from the White Sox and reduce the magic number to 5.
Yeah, so now, I mean, the Cubs have a little bit more breathing room now. And, I got to tell you, Friday was a very, very, very terrible day to be a Cubs fan for many, many reasons. And, the Cubs ended up getting trounced by the White Sox. What was it, 10-4? That was pretty ugly. And then the Brewers had won, and they were in danger of having that division lead go down to a half game with another Cub loss and Brewer win. And then, a few other things that are very unfortunate that, I think you all know what I'm talking about. That was a really terrible day. But, props to the team for coming back and, winning 2 really good games. Yesterday they won 8-3, and then the 6-1 victory. Those were big wins, and you had a Brewer loss one of those days. So you went from 8-5 to the magic number. So you're feeling a bit better now. I think as a Cubs fan, you got to feel a bit better right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be especially good is, you're running out of real estate as far as games, where the Cubs have 7 games left.
Let's see, 4 against the Pirates. Yeah, and then 3 against the Cardinals.
So it's 7 games left, and the Brewers have 6 games left. Your magic number's 5, and the Brewers have a 3-game set against the Cardinals starting tomorrow. That you can kind of hope that the Cardinals help you out a little bit there, and take care of the Brewers. At least 2 out of 3 really sets you up to be in a good spot with, bare minimum magic number being 3.
Yeah, I mean, you could kind of look at it from two different perspectives. You can say, hey, they're pretty close to clinching. You could say, the Cubs win 4 of the next 7, and the Brewers only have to lose 1 of those games. I mean, that would also mean the Cubs would have to take 3 or 4 from the Pirates and at least 1 from the Cardinals, or 2 from the Cardinals and at least 2 from the Pirates, which could be easier said than done. I mean, you got to believe in this team, but you can also say, hey, if the Brewers lose 2 games, all you have to do is win 3 more. And you think that would be pretty possible, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, you think that's pretty possible. I'm just quickly looking at the standings here, and the Cardinals are all but eliminated from winning the division. So hopefully they can play spoilers with the Brewers, but the Cubs just need to take care of business. You can't assume that the Brewers are going to go down easy and help you backdoor into this.
Oh, right.
This is a season where you want to win the division by winning a game, not win the division by the Brewers losing, because I mean, maybe I don't have any statistics to back this up, and it would be kind of interesting to go back and look, but I just feel when you backdoor your way into the playoffs, it doesn't lead to good things. You want to go out with a victory.
Well, I think it depends on the circumstances, because technically a Cardinal loss is what clinched it in 2016, but the Cubs were also up 17 and a half games, so I guess that didn't really matter.
But this is a tight race,
right?
And I mean, it's one thing if they finish the game before you, it clinches it, and you still win. You want your celebration for the division to be because you won a game, not because
of course
somebody else lost. And I think it really does add a level of some sort of aura to your team when it comes when you come down to the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I mean, when you think about it, I think 2017 was the only year in the Joe Madden era where the Cubs actually clinched via a win. Because 2015, they got into the playoffs with a Giants loss. And then in 2016, like I said, a Cardinals loss clinched the division for the Cubs because the Cubs lost a pretty frustrating game against the Brewers. I'll never forget that. Like, the Cubs were set to win the division with the win against the Brewers. They were up 2-0 early. Looked like it was going to be easy peasy, lemon squeezy, and then Scooter Gennett happened, and that didn't happen. But, excuse me. But again, that was when they were up 17 games. This is a lot different, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking at the standings right now again. So Cubs winning the division. Atlanta, I think they won the division. The Dodgers are winning the division, and it's still Milwaukee and St. Louis with the wild card. Colorado's still in it, but mathematically everybody else has been eliminated.
And here's the thing, unless the Braves or Dodgers surpass the Cubs in wins, the Cubs are going to have to deal with either St. Louis or Milwaukee in the NLDS, unless there's a nice magical run by Colorado. I just don't see that happening, but it looks like most likely it's going to be the Cardinals or the Brewers in the NLDS, so be ready for that.
Talk about coming from out of nowhere for the wild card. Tampa Bay is only 1 game out of the wild card.
They're that close.
Yep.
This is a team that I thought was going to be worse than the Marlins when the season started. Oh, we're only going to have 4 legit starters. We're going to trade this, and this. The Tampa Bay Rays have this amazing ability to take teams that just look like they'll do absolutely nothing and end up actually being contenders. It's crazy.
That's funny. Yeah, but in the NL, it's everybody's eliminated from the playoffs, and there's only going to be 1 more team eliminated, and it's either going to be, it's probably going to be Colorado, but I mean, anything can happen. And the good news is, I read that Milwaukee's about to do a bullpen
Yeah, I saw
start.
that.
So, most of the time, those. I mean, I just feel like that's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. But this late in the season, when you rely heavily on your bullpen, I just think it's a bad idea. Like, there's nobody in the minor leagues that you can bring up for a start.
Yeah, I don't know. And I mean, hey, it seems like every minor leaguer, nobody we really know about on the Brewers comes up and he dominates. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully that weakens the bullpen for the Brewers, and hopefully that chalks up a loss for them.
Well, that. Here's the thing: if the Cubs do play the Brewers in the NLDS, that's kind of a scary matchup because the Cubs have not hit their starting pitching well, and all they have to do is go 5-6 innings, and then you get to their bullpen. And it's like, well, you're kind of screwed.
Who would you? I mean, would you rather play the Cardinals?
Not really, but I mean, the thing with the Cardinals is that it's because they're the Cardinals. They go on these magical bullshit runs, like that. But I feel like the Cardinals may have more weaknesses. Like, that bullpen is nowhere near as good as Milwaukee's, but that starting rotation is pretty dang good.
On paper, I'm right there with you. I think
it's hard.
On paper, the Cubs should match up really well with the Cardinals, and you should be very comfortable that they take that series. But the Brewers, man, the Brewers are good. Yeah, it's one of those things you always careful of what you wish for.
Right. So it's kind of like, well, I could see it going either way, and I don't really know how to feel about it. You know what I mean? And the other thing you got to keep in mind is with St. Louis, their lineup, Marcelo Ozuna is pretty solid. Yadi Molina, no matter what, he's going to find ways to beat you, even when he's on one leg. Colton Wong has been an absolute Cub killer. Harrison Bader has come out of nowhere and has just killed it. But you feel like at times that could be a bit more manageable because if Yelich and Kane are going off, that's really tough to beat.
Oh, absolutely. And, Yelich has been, MVP consideration type level this year.
And Kane knows how to win. He's been on the world champion Royals.
Yeah. So it's going to be tough. And, for the most part, we've been consistently worried about the Cubs hitting coming through. But honestly, the last Quintana start and the last Cole Hamels start, make you wonder, have we hit the rough patch in our starting pitching?
Well, here's how I see it. The Cubs were pitching so unbelievably well and stealing wins for them that they were due for some clunkiness. Cole Hamels, I just think he was flat out due for a terrible start. And the last Jose Quintana start, I didn't really see it, but I don't really know what to make of that. It was his first really bad start in some time. So I'm optimistically saying that no, that's not the case, but you never know. Because here's the other good thing. Kyle Hendricks, as we mentioned, looks great. John Lester still looks solid. And if Cole Hamels can rebound, you got three pretty dependable guys right there. And if Jose Quintana has one more good start, then you could feel a little better with him. So I still think offense is a bit more of my concern than pitching. But now that I say that, it'll probably be the opposite.
Also, my concern is Chris Bryant's shoulder.
Yeah, that is a concern. When I saw that he was sitting today with shoulder fatigue, I thought, oh boy.
Yeah, I read that as shoulder pain.
Right. I mean, Joe Madden tried to say that there was no pain, but there's got to be some sort of discomfort, some form of discomfort that's not allowing you to play.
Yeah, and that's bad news when you're on the eve of the playoffs and then on the cusp of making the playoffs again. And a team that in a wide open National League there is no front runner here. I mean, if there is, it's probably you.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're the team with the big expectations. And the other thing is, you got to keep in mind that if Chris Bryant's shoulder isn't, 100%, and he's facing MLB pitching in the postseason, we're not talking just his scrubs that have been called up from AAA to make spot starts against bad teams. I mean, we're talking about postseason MLB pitchers. It's going to be tough to catch up to some of those fastballs if you're having shoulder problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And nevertheless, the power is you lose that power too.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it. There's been a loss of power.
We've seen a precipitous drop in power.
Yeah.
But today's win, it was a nice win too, that means the Cubs have reached 90 wins for the fourth straight season. It's the first time the franchise has done that since a 9-year run of 90 or more wins from 1904 to 1912.
Did you see the article I wrote for Wrigley Report on that?
No, I didn't.
So I wrote that last night, and it came out this morning. So I had a few fun facts the last time that they had that kind of streak. And like you said, 1904, 1912. You ready to hear some interesting facts?
Yes, actually I am.
All right. So during that stretch, Mordecai Three Finger Brown, the Hall of Fame pitcher, he pitched in 2,280.2 innings over that span. That's over 1,000 strikeouts and an ERA of 1.75 in over 2,200 innings.
That's ridiculous.
You'll never see that.
That is absolutely ridiculous.
7 of those teams during that stretch were managed by player-manager Hall of Famer Frank Chance. If everyone knows the poem Tinkers the Evers the Chance, you'll know exactly who I'm talking about. Also during that streak, that was when we saw the construction of Tiger Stadium, Comiskey Park, and Fenway Park. So you had 3 of the classic stadiums just being built. And keep in mind that Fenway Park's the only one that's really left, because Wrigley Field was not built until 1914, and the Cubs played on the west side, not at Wrigley Field. Babe Ruth had not joined the majors yet. Jackie Robinson wasn't even born yet. The Yankees had 0 World Series titles. Chris Bryant wouldn't be born for another 88 years. And a terrible team, one of the worst teams that year, the Washington Senators in 1904, when the streak started, 38-113. Yee.
Halfway through that streak was when the first production automobile came on the market.
Yeah.
1908 was the model. The Model T was the first mass-produced automobile, and it was halfway through that streak.
Isn't that something? Here's another thing to keep in mind. I wrote this earlier in the article. If you look from 1913 to 2014, so 99 years, the Cubs had 12 90-plus win seasons over that stretch. Only twice they did that in the wild card era, so from 1993 until present, or until 2014. So there you go. For the last 4 years, from 93 to 2014, only twice. And in the division era, they never had it in consecutive years. You had 84, 89, 1990, and then 08 before 2015 in the division era. So this is quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. And it's funny because none of us are satisfied because we know that they can still go to another level.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, imagine if Yu Darvish was healthy. Imagine if Chris Bryant was healthy and the team was more consistent with hitting and pitching. I mean, you're looking at a potential 100+ win team right there. But with all the things that have gone wrong, they've still won over 90 games and could very well win a division. They'll definitely play beyond the season because I think their magic number to clinch a playoff is like 2. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to win a division for your third year in a row, that's 3 division titles in a row. You had 3 division titles from 1990 to 2009.
There you go. But yeah, I mean, it's nice to see the bats start to warm up, and the bats warm up coupled with a really dominant pitching performance. And you just, you hope that you can continue that with these next 2 series, because winning series at the ends in clutch time against division opponents is never an easy thing. And you've got 4-game series are tough too, because those are hard to win. The vast majority of them are 2-2. So you got to go in there and win a 4-game series against the Pirates, and then wrap it up by having to beat the Cardinals, to win this division.
Yeah, it's certainly not going to be easy. They're lucky that the magic number now is 5 and it's not like 9 or 10, because that would be way different. That's a way different scenario right there. But yeah, you hope that they can take care of it as pain-free as possible. That would be pretty nice. So yeah, hopefully at this time next week, we're talking NLDS for sure. And we don't want to play in a wild card game.
No, we do not want to play in a wild card game. And so the first game of this Pirates series, we got Cole Hamels pitching. So hopefully we can see a bounce back performance and get back to just the absolutely dominant stuff that he's had since the Cubs brought him over. And game 2, Mike Montgomery, or that's the planned. And then
hey, he was really good in Arizona. If you watched him against Arizona, he was fantastic.
Yeah, he was. He was really good. And then it's Quintana game 3 and Lester game 4.
Well, you pretty much have your postseason rotation minus Hendricks and Montgomery instead. So 3 or 4 postseason guys will be in there. You hope you could take 3 of 4. I don't think they're going to sweep. I don't think the Pirates are going to get swept because they have Trevor Williams, who's really, really good. So he's going to be a tough beat, but you want to at least win the series there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Trevor Williams is going up against John Lester. That's going to be a nice matchup.
For sure.
Yeah, but the hope is that if you could take 3 of 4 from the Pirates and have the St. Louis Cardinals win the series against the Brewers and not have to have any pressure with the Cardinals series, and you can just use that to set your rotation and get ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, if that happens, you win the division. If you take 3 of 4 and the Brewers lose 2 of 3, then you win the division.
Yeah, but that would be nice just to not have any pressure. You just go out there and whatever happens with the Cardinals, it just happens.
Right.
And you can just reset your rotation and be ready for whoever you play in that first round.
Absolutely. That would be ideal. Will it happen? I don't know.
No, but the one good thing about having a series against the first round series against most likely the Brewers or the Cardinals, the travel days are short.
Yes, that's true.
If you're going to Colorado or you're going to Los Angeles, those just they're much longer flights and time zone changes. If it's the Brewers, it's an hour and a half away.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's something I haven't really thought of.
Hour and a half drive.
That's true.
I don't even know if you fly
Probably
there.
Not.
it's an hour and a half drive.
Yeah, no, I think they'd probably just bus it there.
Yeah, you feel like you don't even stay there. You can just go home, stay at your own house. I mean, they don't because just because of the routine, but it's it's such an easy commute there.
Yeah, definitely easier than Los Angeles.
Uh, but yeah, it's nice to see. I think we were both kind of concerned about this White
Yeah, I
Sox
was.
series, just because playing spoiler, and things that didn't shake out the way I expected them to. Um, I really thought that Quintana would come out there and look great and then get that first win. And the game that I was worried about was today because I was like, man, what Carlos Rodon, the way he's been pitching, and the Cubs just manhandled.
Yeah, they did. They jumped on him early. Didn't do much against the pen, but they were already up by a lot. So, good for them for jumping out early. The rebuilding White Sox, they did show a decent amount of fight. I mean, they dominated that first game. They pounded out 19 hits, and you kind of saw the talent from Moncada and Kevin Smith and that Daniel Palka. Man, where did he come from?
Out of nowhere.
I mean, what, he's got over 20 home runs now, right? It seems like every
Yeah.
day he's hitting one.
But who knows where he's going to fit into the future? That's the crazy part.
Yeah, well, next year he's going to try to prove that this year was no fluke.
Yeah, that's for the White Sox sake, I hope he's not a fluke.
I mean, I had no idea who this guy was. I'm looking at his page right now. He's 26 years old, and this is obviously his first year in the bigs. I mean, yeah, 27 home runs. That's impressive.
But yeah, I really thought that Rodon would be the tough one for the Cubs, and it turned out that Reynaldo Lopez is the one that just mowed through the entire Cubs lineup.
See, I thought they would hit Lopez and Lucas Giolito was going to mow them down. Because I thought, okay, he throws a lot of off-speed stuff. He's got a lot of movement on his pitches. And, sometimes when they get over-aggressive, they haven't been as patient as they normally are at the plate. And with Reynaldo Lopez, he's got really good stuff, but he has kind of the stuff that the Cubs are able to hit. So that's why I thought it was going to be the other way around there. Carlos Rodon, I said, they're either going to crush him or they're going to get crushed.
Yeah. But I kind of want to talk about the elephant in the room as far as the Cubs are concerned.
Yeah.
So last year, the tweet came out. I believe it was a friend of Addison Russell's then wife, about infidelity and some other issues going on in the marriage, and it was quickly removed. And I think people were really caught off guard because of the public persona that Addison Russell displays. It didn't really mesh with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe there was an investigation. Nothing came of it because nobody was really willing to talk. If Addison Russell's now ex-wife didn't want to speak, it sort of just dies there. But, a few days ago, she posted a blog post on her blog that outlined not the specifics, but a lot more details on what was happening behind closed doors in that marriage. Just the absolute tale of domestic violence was just really, really hard to read and just kind of devastating. I mean, if you hear the accounts of women, this just fits perfectly into what they say. I mean, there's all the signs, the empty promises, the gaslighting, the victim blaming, everything involved in these types of stories were there. And I think the most heartbreaking one is when she finally separated from him and then he hadn't seen his child in a long time, took the child to see Addison Russell, and he assaulted her again. That's when she filed for divorce. And all of that was really tough to read. And I know we have a due process type system, but it's really hard to believe that this is all made up. And, um, if any portion of this is true, I hope he never wears a Cub uniform ever again.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I am with you there. And you know what? I think his days were numbered regardless, but I think this pretty much ices it. They just they gotta cut ties with him. And you know what? Team wise, you shouldn't have to think twice because of how serious this issue is. And they'll be fine. You have Javi Baez playing shortstop. What if you go get Manny Machado and Baez goes to second? And you still have Ben Zobrist one more year. They're all much more valuable than Addison Russell, from a baseball standpoint. But when you have something like this come out, there shouldn't even be a single question about it. And look, I know we have the due process for a reason. I get that. I get that. I get that. But when you heard the friend say something last year and then her recount these things, like you said, I have a very tough time believing this is all made up. I think they got to take that seriously, and they got to get him out of here.
And
it's not worth it.
And I wish it would have been the Cubs that took the action rather. I think baseball took the action this time, right, with the leave of absence.
Yeah, the
it would have been nice if the Cubs would have been the ones that took that action first rather than leave it to Major League Baseball. And the only way I can be okay with it is if Theo and Jed had a conversation with the league office and said, hey, we want to suspend him for team morale. We would prefer it came from the league rather than us. Because I mean, if it ended up being, which I highly doubt, but if it somehow wound up that this was not true, it would look bad if it could look bad from a morale perspective if the Cubs, were the message came from the Cubs. That's the only thing I can think of. And that's even kind of hard to swallow. But I just, I'm just glad that decisive action was taken this time, because when there's strong allegations of domestic violence, if the league doesn't take it seriously in any sport, then that just sends a message to all of your female fans that you condone this.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not what you want to send, because it's certainly not the right thing to send. And I don't, like I said, I don't want to see him play for the Cubs again, really, for multiple reasons. And look, I think that you don't have him on the playoff roster, then it kind of makes things easier on the Cubs. Here's the other thing. Do you really want this, no matter what you find? Do you really want him around? I think that would just be a big problem.
I'm just glad, because in a lot of these situations, when something happens and the person that's the central person in it, when they're not around to answer questions, it falls on the teammates to have to answer the questions for them. And I think that causes a big distraction. In this situation, I think it's not falling on the teammates per se. I mean, I know there was some questions, but I'm glad that it's not falling on the other Cubs players to have to answer for what Addison Russell was doing behind closed doors.
And you know what? It's not their place.
No.
It's not their place to talk about.
Yeah, it's never. I mean, I know a lot of times they'll ask questions from that player's perspective about what Addison Russell did. Like, how is this going to impact your team? How do you feel? What are your thoughts on it? And it's a really tough position to be in, because, this is a guy that you've spent several seasons with as a teammate. And I'm sure they were all shocked by everything when they heard it.
Of course.
Because if they all, if Addison Russell came in, he's like, yeah, I beat my wife's ass again. No, none of them are going to stand for that. And
No, of
Joe
course not.
definitely is not going to stand for that. And so clearly this caught everybody off guard. And, what do you say? It's a tough, these guys are professional athletes, not PR mouthpieces. And it's a tough position for them to be in. And you're putting them in an emotional spot, and then you're going to critique the emotion that they have behind it.
Yeah, there's no way in hell I'd want to be in their position in that kind of situation. No way.
I mean, you felt bad enough for teammates answering the question after the guy retired in mid-game last weekend, because the guy pieced. This is actually a real life situation, not a game.
Right. Much, 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 much more serious.
But I just hope that what's her name, Marissa,
something like that.
Yeah, I just hope that she and her child get whatever help they need.
Absolutely.
And to get themselves better, because
how do you tell that to your children, man? Really?
Yeah, it's sad. I mean, she's a beautiful young girl, and you just hope this doesn't ruin her life and she's able to move on from this.
Yep. You wish the best for her and the kids.
Yeah. And Addison Russell has another kid from another woman on the way, so there's that.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah. But there's one thing I want to talk about, changing moods and changing sports, that I want to talk about before we get to the Bears. And I wasn't going to talk Bulls, but I saw this tweet the other day. And it was after Jimmy Butler demanding a trade. Is Lauri Markkanen tweeted out hashtag TBT and a picture of him with after he'd gotten drafted by the Minnesota Timberwolves, wearing the Timberwolves hat in his suit, and he's opening it up to show that the inside is lined with the colors of the flag of his country. And he tweeted that out during the Timberwolves mess, and Joel Embiid retweeted it and just wrote, bruh.
I saw that. That was great.
That was amazing. It was both parties was just absolute perfect. Lauri Markkanen just held no punches back. It just was like, boom, there, take that. And Joel Embiid was just like, bruh. That cracked me up.
That's a whole interesting mess on its own with the Timberwolves.
I don't even know how this resolves. I mean, doesn't this it's a whole mess. You're bringing in these aged players. You've got a coach who grinds everybody so hard, and then you just give the guy that your star player has been criticizing in public, you just give him a massive contract extension. And I don't know how this plays out.
If one of your best, if not your best player is saying he wants to play for the Los Angeles Clippers, I mean, woof. You talk about a situation where you just go woof.
Well, I think didn't Jimmy say there was 3 teams that he would accept a trade to where he'd sign an extension? I think
it was LA.
It was the Clippers. The Clippers, wasn't it the Nets? Not the. Was it the Knicks?
It was the Knicks.
Okay, because when I heard the Nets, but and there was one other team, and so that really just hampers the Timberwolves from being able to do the necessary things that they need to do to, get a quality value back for him. If it's every other team's like, well, we're trading for him as a rental, that really sucks. The Timberwolves are in a real terrible spot. Real terrible.
And I mean, what was their big move this year? Luol Deng?
Yeah. I mean, they could make another huge splash and go out and get Joakim Noah too.
Yeah, I mean, bring the Timberwolves together. Oh, this is a mess. For
That I
them.
mean, that is still a an option.
Okay, so
But apparently, I'm reading now. This is a 6-hour-old report that the Cavaliers are pursuing a trade for Jimmy Butler.
Really? By the way, you weren't wrong about the Nets. It was Knicks, Nets, Clippers originally from the other day.
Okay, so I thought I heard that. So those were the teams. And this is Adrian Wojnarowski that's reporting that is the Cavaliers owner Dan Gilbert was seen talking privately with Glenn Taylor at NBA Board of Governors meeting on Friday. And they're pursuing a Jimmy Butler trade.
What are they going to
I
trade?
don't know.
Draft pick? I mean, do they have anything of value anymore? I really don't know.
I don't know. But, I mean, if he's going to be a rent.
I mean, let's face it, LeBron made that team good.
It was, we'll see there. We'll definitely see there. I still think it'd be funny.
But, you know,
it would be funny if the Cavaliers wound up with a better record than the Lakers.
I don't think that's going to happen, but that would be something.
I think more likely to happen would be the Cavaliers go further in the playoffs than the Lakers. Just because, I mean, of the two scenarios, just because the East is terrible. And the Lakers, I still think they have a ton of talent around LeBron. And they're going to be up against just some powerhouse teams. Like, I don't think the Lakers could get past Houston. I don't think they can get past the Golden State Warriors. No. There's a lot of talent that they could just get knocked out in the first round in the West. But the East is just a toss-up.
Yeah, for sure.
Should we transition over to the Big Bears victory today?
Yes.
All right, so the Chicago Bears, after a really good, well-played game where they almost beat the Green Bay Packers, followed it up with a nice defensive performance in a victory against the Seattle Seahawks. And everybody's expecting them to head to Arizona and just absolutely manhandle that absolutely atrocious Cardinals team. Everybody and their mother had it as a lock game, and the Bears got the victory, but looked like dog shit while they were doing it.
I think you summed it up pretty well. There were a few goods, a lot of not so goods, and some head scratchers. Had a little bit of everything.
And other than the special teams, is everybody had a part in looking like shit. And, there was a couple of players that came up huge for the Bears in being able to seal the victory. And you can even...
And again, no shock was one. We all know who one of those guys was.
Yes. And we had for a third straight game we had a sighting of John Gruden talking about how they need to get more pass rush.
What, are they stuck with that guy for 9 more years after this? Huh?
Yeah, you can even say that the special teams had a hand in this looking like shit too, because you had a missed field goal that was under 50 yards. So where to start in this shenanigans of a game?
All right, can we just can we get through what I thought was the worst part of the game? And I think you know who I'm talking about. So can we just say it on 3 together? Are you ready? 1, 2, 3.
Sure.
Mitch Trubisky. Yeah.
Mitch Trubisky. Mitch Trubisky looked awful. Absolutely awful. And I'm going to preface this by saying, I'm not going to go and say he's a bust. That's way too soon in a new offense of a second-year player who didn't play a lot of college. It's way too soon to say stuff like that. But it's not too soon to talk about how he's missing reads. He's missing open players to throw into coverage. His footwork looks like crap. He's not reading the defense when there's obvious blitzes coming and he doesn't have protection. And he's not calling the proper audibles. He's missing throws and he has poor pocket presence. Like, all of those things are true. And I can say all those things because they're factually true without saying he's a bust. He needs to play a lot better, especially when you are seeing young players play well. Baker Mayfield, Patrick Mahomes, like, you are seeing young quarterbacks play well. Josh Allen. These guys are playing well as young players. Mitch Trubisky needs to play better. And he's very frustrating because when he does these boneheaded plays, you watch him just go sit on the bench and just stare off into space. When you see other quarterbacks make these mistakes, they've got those blue tablets and they're looking to see, they're discussing with coaches, they're discussing with wide receivers, they're discussing with the backup quarterbacks. They're trying to figure out what went wrong and how to fix it. And he's just staring off into space. And that's the frustrating part, is he's supposed to be getting better and he's already regressing from a poor performance.
Look, I think someone needs to sit him down and say, hey, when you're on the sidelines, we got to talk this stuff over. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts. I don't care what you say. If you're one of the coaches and you say we need to do it, then you need to do it. Because you know what?
Yeah.
What we saw today, the Bears are so lucky to have won that game. The defense and just the Cardinals being a terrible team won you that game. He was the least factor in winning that game. And I stand by that. The defense helped you win. Jordan Howard helped you win. Some of the receivers helped you win. It was not Mitch Trubisky at all.
I'm 100% with you. There was 2 passes that he missed that should have been touchdown passes, and he missed them. There was the slant pass, the skinny post with Allen Robinson, where he just threw it behind, and Allen Robinson was open on the goal line. All he had to do was catch it, and it's a touchdown, and it was thrown behind him. The other one was Anthony Miller. You have to make these throws. And the thing is, what's making it even worse is that when you do throw, you're throwing such short passes. You're not stretching the defense. You're not keeping them honest, because they see when you're throwing deep balls, you're going for home run balls and you're way overthrowing them or way underthrowing them. And you're not throwing anything intermediate. You're not throwing 15, 20-yard passes. You had a couple in there, but for the most part, you're not. It's all short underneath stuff, dumping it to safety valves.
And that's why you look at kind of the raw numbers and you say, well, could he have really been that bad? It was one of those things, because he had 220 yards, but you got to look at it as a whole and say, you got to watch what happened to really kind of understand what we're talking about. There's one play that really stood out to me, It was in the second half. I believe the receiver was Allen Robinson, and he had a guy beat way downfield on a deep throw, and it was severely underthrown. And it was lucky it didn't get picked off. You know exactly what I'm talking about?
Yep, that was the one where he had
Yes.
the sideline, and that's a play where you you've got to put the ball between Allen Robinson and the sideline. You can't underthrow those because that's interception, because that's the route that Allen Robinson ran. It was he had the sideline, so you throw that over his shoulder or between the sideline and the player and make him or let him make the catch, because then it's not intercepted. You underthrew it, and Allen Robinson had to go into the defensive back mode to try to help break that up.
Yeah, I mean, right there, I think that's one thing that I think just epitomizes his day. That and the fumble early in the game, that was really bad. When they went from 7-0 to 14-0 down, that fumble is just awful. He just doesn't look confident out there right now.
No, and the only time that he looks good is on either broken plays where the defense breaks down, or it's on scripted plays. And this game, they had first 15 plays were scripted, and the first 8 plays for the second half were scripted. And I appreciate Matt Nagy doing that, because you're trying to set up yourself in the second half to play better, because you've really struggled offensively in the second half, and to jumpstart that. But the play calling was, the 8 plays you had for the second half were terrible, and you just looked just as bad as when they were unscripted plays. And that's a bad spot to be in, is if you're Mitch Trubisky, is that the only plays you can be successful in is where the defense screws up, or you've been practicing that specific play in that specific sequence.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be done here.
There's a whole lot to be done. And you know, I'd like to switch over and just talk about some of the other areas where, the Bears struggled today. And my second biggest criticism is coaching.
Yeah.
And this was a bad game for Matt Nagy on multiple levels. One is timeout management. There was a time.
Oh, that was bad. That was really bad.
There were multiple times when he just looked confused. And the most egregious one is at the end, when it was you were gonna go for it on, was it go for it on 4th? And then they sent the team out there, and then just called the timeout.
They didn't even try to draw them off sides. They just sent the team out there and called timeout. I'm like, what the hell?
At least to try to draw them off sides. Then I think everybody can be like, all right, well, they took a shot at that, but they didn't. They didn't even line up. He just called timeout, and he decided to not go for it. And
was it just a brain cramp? I don't know.
Had the Cardinals gotten down, kicked a field goal to take the lead, how important would that extra timeout have been?
Oh, yeah, I couldn't even imagine.
I mean, there was that play. There was, you don't go for it on 4th down when you're down by 2 touchdowns, but then you go for it later on. Like, I mean, I would have gone for it on both, but the thought process there didn't make sense. The play call when you kicked that field goal, when you had it at 3rd and goal, and you line up 4 wide receivers at the top, and you have single wide receiver at the bottom and Allen Robinson, and you throw a fade route with a quarterback, and that quarterback never even looked at the 4 receiver side. There were 3 cornerbacks to cover 4 wide receivers, and he never even looked over there. He was going, everybody in the entire world he knew he was going to Allen Robinson, and he went for Allen Robinson, and it was a bad pass, and they were ready for it. That was bad.
Was that the drive that they had 2 roughing the passer calls go their way and they still couldn't get in?
Yes, same drive.
That was maddening.
then, like, all right, that play that they scored the touchdown last week where they shovel past it to, they fake the outside run, and they shovel past it to, I think it was Trey Burton for the
I think it was Trey
touchdown.
Burton, yeah.
They ran that same play on, it was either third and short or fourth and short. And they ran that play and they got the yardage. But I was sitting there with my daughter watching the game, and I turned to her and I told her exactly what play the Bears were going to run. And the only thing I got wrong was who was actually going to take the ball, but it was the same exact play. And it didn't, I mean, they needed a half yard and they got a half yard plus an inch, and that was it. So they sort of successful, but nobody was fooled by it.
Right.
So, I mean, Matt Nagy had a rough game as well. The 8 scripted plays in the second half we talked about with Trubisky, that was a bad sequence. You can't have scripted plays go bad. You can't.
That has to get a lot better too. That's all I got to say.
Special teams, the coverage was great. Especially Sherrick McManus looked fantastic, but you had Parkey miss a 48-yard field goal, 46-yard. It was in the 40s.
It was in the 40s,
miss those.
yeah.
You can't miss those. And that could have been huge too, is had the Bears defense not come up big at the end of the game, had the Arizona Cardinals not Cleveland Browned it, then, the Bears, that field goal would have been huge, because instead of being up by 1, they would have been up by 4, and they would have had to drive for a touchdown and not try to kick a field goal. So it was, when you are a team that's struggling offensively and you've had some bad defensive plays, you need to have flawless special teams to make sure that you win this game.
Yeah, I mean, at least Cody Parkey outside that one miss was, dead on the other attempts, so that helped a little bit.
In this game, I there should be a category in the standings. It's not a win. It was the other team just sucked, because this wasn't, this wasn't about the Bears being good. This was about the Cardinals being that bad. This is a fantastically bad team.
I mean, you saw those throws that Sam Bradford was making in the second half before Josh Rosen came in. Not good.
No, not good at all. And, Josh Rosen's making good throws, but making terrible decisions. Is, if you noticed, the Bears were sitting on routes because they knew he was going to throw right into it. And it should have been if Khalil Mack hadn't jumped, which didn't affect the play at all. I mean, I get it. Makes sense, but it wasn't like, oh, they got the interception returned for a touchdown because of the penalty. It was Khalil Mack jumped off sides and then pulled up for the most part because he was trying to get back on sides. And so it actually slowed him down. And you had a guy sitting on the route, intercepted it, ran it back. So it's, he's got some growing pains ahead of him as well.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt. And it was a pretty garbage situation to just say, oh, well, we got to bring you in this big situation now with no experience. That's tough.
Sorry, one more thing I wanted to throw on Nagy's plate is the first 2 games, the Bears were very good as far as, very minimal penalties. And that's going to have to be a hallmark of this team, is play good defense, don't turn the ball over, limit your penalties, especially on offense, because when you're down, more than 10 yards to go, it's going to be real tough for this team to do anything. But you had so many penalties and so many pre-snap procedural penalties, illegal shifts and things like that. You can't have that, especially on a scripted play. You can't make those mistakes. Those are careless mental mistakes.
Yeah, they are. They are. It was disappointing, but hopefully that was just one bad game because the first two really were impressive the way they were disciplined. So, hopefully that changes next week. But yeah, you're definitely right. One thing I do want to say good about Matt Nagy to get into some positives now. I thought he used Jordan Howard the right way this game. I thought that he was used almost perfectly. I don't know about you, but they used Jordan Howard nicely today.
The way they used him, yes. The amount they used him, I still think they need to run him more and more consistently and more often and start doing it earlier, because if that's part of the thing is if you noticed the Cardinals, they were just blitzing the hell out of Mitch Trubisky, and if you're not establishing a solid running game, then you're not keeping that team honest. Um, so I just think they need to do more of it.
And that's valid because I do think there were some times he should have been used, like, in the red zone, obviously. But when they did use him, I thought it was appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, the play calling for him and the situations they used him were good. I just think they need to run Jordan Howard more.
Yeah,
I
and
still
that's
think
fair.
they need to get Tariq Cohen involved more. They got some screen passes.
I agree.
Because there was, the first two drives were halted because Mitch Trubisky didn't recognize two free rushers, one on either side, that were clearly lining up to blitz him. Didn't recognize that. And Matt Nagy on the sideline didn't recognize it and call a timeout. That was bad. It happened twice to end drives. And the third time they did it again, but the Bears knew that they were going to do it and called a screen pass, which kind of blew it up. And I think that went for 9 yards. But, Mitch Trubisky needs to be better on reading what the defense is going to do, is especially an easy thing. If I'm an old guy that never played quarterback and I can sit there and be like, that guy is free rusher off the edge. You need to, if you're going to maintain a pass, then you need to identify that hot route and throw that ball quick and make them pay for having a defensive back rush in like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, do you remember when Trubisky lost 17 yards because he was getting blitzed on both ends, but he kept running
Yep.
backwards?
That is a rookie mistake.
Yeah, that's got to get better too.
I want to talk a few more bad things on defense before I give my positives. The first are the 2 touchdown passes. Those accounted for a vast majority of the Cardinals' whole entire offense of the day, those 2 passes. And the first one, they sent a blitz and they dropped Khalil Mack into coverage without any sort of safety help.
That was
That
weird.
blew my mind. And then the second one, Danny Trevathan just stopped coverage, stopped in the middle, and there was no corners, no safeties. That guy was just wide open.
It was so easy. As soon as you saw the ball going toward him, I said, too easy. There's nobody
And
anywhere
those 2
near
plays, I just threw my hands up because they were so bad. They were such blown coverages that you're like, what the hell is Vic Fangio doing? And what are these players doing? We talked about how last week that after the first game, the safeties had a rough game. Last week, they had a great game. And this week, it went back to just, other than the Eddie Jackson great interception, they were just non-existent.
Yeah, no, you couldn't have said it better. I mean, let's face it. Towards the end of the game, it was all the front 7 putting the pressure on the quarterback, getting it done. Obviously, he had the interception towards the end, but again, he was under a lot of pressure and he was forced to throw because they had to get into field goal range.
Whenever you have, Leonard Floyd is a much better coverage outside linebacker than Khalil Mack, but if you're dropping Khalil Mack into coverage, I'm fine with that. But you can't have him drop into coverage with a receiver and there's no help at all, because if that play goes longer than, a couple of seconds and that back that's being covered is, an above average player, he's got the advantage over Khalil Mack in running that route. And you're going to see another bad play where there's big yardage given up. Is the Bears defense has been real stout, but then they've just had quite a few big plays that they've given up. It's like boom or bust.
Yeah, exactly. That's got to be better.
The other bad thing I want to talk about, and this might be the last one, and I'm going to even give somewhat of a pass to it, is there was a play where the cornerback Tolliver, who was in for an injured Prince Amukamara, who apparently has a hamstring issue, which hopefully is not bad, but
yeah, let's hope.
But Tolliver came in, and it was a play. I think it was second and short or third and short, and the wide receiver did a double move, and the first move acted like he was going to turn right at the sticks, and planted and then ran a deep route, and Tolliver bit because it was right at the sticks. And I can see that he's an undrafted rookie coming in and starting in the NFL, playing in the NFL, and he bit on a good double move, but it was a double move that made sense to go to that first move because it was right at the sticks, and that's where you kind of expect the play to go. And he got burned bad, and it was costly for the Bears. But I understand why he made that mistake and what he was thinking, and I can't be mad at it.
Yeah, it was one of the mistakes that weren't as slap in the face. Why'd they do that as many of the others?
No, but it's a play that Prince Amukamara doesn't get fooled by.
Oh, of course. I mean, that was just a bad situation not having him in there, due to injury. And like you said, hopefully it's not that serious.
But I want to talk about a player that was really unsung today because you didn't hear his name once. Kyle Fuller played great.
Yeah, he did.
I don't think anybody made a catch on him. He just played great. And he's played great all 3 games so far. It's just we've noticed him because there were the 2 bad touchdowns, and the one against Green Bay, there was nothing you can do. It was an absolute. It's one of those throws from Aaron Rodgers that when he goes into the Hall of Fame, they're going to play that throw because it was a perfect throw. Nothing you can do. The other one was a very, very, very good throw. He had great coverage. He just didn't turn his head. But other than those 2, which were just very spotlight, he's played fantastic.
Which is good because you gave him that contract and you need some secondary production out there. So hopefully that improves as Kyle Fuller stays decent.
Others on defense, Khalil Mack again looked fantastic.
I mean, isn't that going to be basically what we say every week? I mean, this guy is unreal.
Not just as because there were times like on that big sack by Keem Hicks, is if you watched, Khalil Mack was triple teamed. There were 3 guys blocking him at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And
you got to remember, there's a Pro Bowl caliber, who I think is a Pro Bowl caliber lineman in Akeem Hicks. Fine, you want to put it all there? Then Akeem Hicks will get you easily.
Yeah, everybody on that defensive line has played well. Eddie Goldman looks great. Leonard Floyd looks great. Akeem Hicks looks great. And Khalil Mack is just dominant. And It was funny is my dad's been in the hospital for a while, and I went to visit him today, and he was talking about the Packers. He had the Packers game on TV, and he was like, "Oh man, I would love for the Bears to have that Clay Matthews." And I was like, "Why? Why? You have Khalil Mack." And he's like, "I don't know. That Clay Matthews is good." And I was like, Clay Matthews has a Khalil Mack poster on his wall. Like, the only time you can say I would rather have Clay Matthews than Khalil Mack was when Khalil Mack was still in high school and Clay Matthews was in the NFL. Then you go, yes, take that. But since Khalil Mack has been in the NFL, Khalil Mack has been a better player. And it's not a knock on Clay Matthews. It is just that Khalil Mack is a Hall of Fame level player. I mean, not just Hall of Fame, but like Hall of Fame. Like, when you talk about Lawrence Taylor, that's the kind of guy, not those guys that like eke into the Hall of Fame or you debate or Khalil Mack is on a trajectory to be one of those guys that if anybody suggests he's not a Hall of Famer, you just give him that look like, what are you smoking?
Every Bears fan should thank God every night that Khalil Mack was traded to the Chicago Bears. This is an acquisition that is honestly historic. This is a historic trade the Bears made. And he's going to be here a while.
And it's funny because there's still people that are mad that the Bears gave up 2 first-round picks for him. First of all, they gave up 2 first-round picks, but they got a second-rounder back. So that's like a one.
And you have freaking Khalil Mack.
But even if you just gave up 2 first-rounders, would you trade Kevin White and Mitch Trubisky for Khalil Mack? Yes.
Yes.
There's nobody on earth other than Kevin White's mom and Mitch Trubisky's grandma that would say no to that.
He's one of a kind.
He's a special player. He's a game changer. Is the Bears were one dropped interception away from being 3-0 this season.
Yeah.
And without Khalil Mack, you very well could be 0-3.
Absolutely. Or at least 1-2.
The Bears are in first place in the NFC North for the first time since in half a decade.
You know what I was doing research on? I was trying to find when was the last time the Cubs and the Bears were in first place at the same time. Do you have any idea?
Has it happened? I mean, I'm sure it's happened, before I was born, but I'm trying to think.
1989, they were in first for a time. And then in 2008, if you're going off technicality, the Bears were tied for the NFC North lead on September 28th after they beat the Eagles, and the Cubs were wrapping up the NL Central race, or had pretty much already had it wrapped up by that point. But I mean, other than that, you don't see it happen.
I was going to say maybe 84.
Well, that's the last time they both made the playoffs in the same year.
Yeah, so that's crazy because these are 2 old franchises.
It is pretty crazy.
But I mean, I'm really glad to have the win because no matter what, there's no column in the win-loss that says ugly win. It's just win, loss, or in the case of this season, there's already been 2 ties. But you chalk this up as a win, and it's a road win. No matter who the opponent is in the NFL, the goal of your season is if you can win all of your home games and 50% of your road games, you are a playoff team, probably a division winner. And right now, the Bears are undefeated at home, and they're winning 50% of their road games.
Yeah, it's going to be big going forward. You got to get every win you can if you want to make the playoffs. And believe me, despite all the ugliness in this game, I am thrilled and happy that we're talking about a Bears win. The way we talked on this show, it certainly seems like they lost, but you know what? They won. So be happy for that.
Yeah, and I'm upset about a lot of things, but partially because I have a lot of high expectations, and in a lot of areas they're not being met.
Yeah. It's one thing that you kind of hope that if they get it together, then you really see how good this team can be. And even when they don't have it together, they're at least pulling out some wins.
Yeah, and the good thing about this was it was bad. It started off bad, and offensively you were bad pretty much the whole game, but you've found a way to overcome it and win the game, and that was really important.
Right. I mean, you got to love the way the defense buckled down in those last few minutes.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to talk about the last drive, is the highlight for me, not just because it was what sealed the victory, but because of the aggressive nature of things, is when it came down, it was going to be a Hail Mary. I fully expected the Bears to drop, 8 guys into coverage and rush 3 and then play to just bat the ball down.
That's what I thought too.
And the Bears sent 7. The Bears did an all-out blitz saying there's no way that this Cardinals offensive line can stop us from getting to the quarterback before that the wide receivers can get anywhere near the end zone. And it wasn't even close. They got to the quarterback and he saw the pass rush before it got there, and he buckled under that pressure.
And it was an easy sack. They just swarmed him and they got him. There wasn't a lot of dancing. There wasn't a lot of, oh my God, get him, get him, get him. It was just, boom, they got him.
Yep. And it's funny. You look at the total yards of the Cardinals, and just a huge chunk of it was just on those 2 big plays. If you take away those 2 pass plays, they are like 70 yards total. You're looking at Sam Bradford without those 2. He's at like 80 some yards passing, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 3 sacks. And David Johnson, their stud running back, averaged 2.6 yards per carry and had 31 yards.
You got to like what you see from the running defense so far as a whole from this Bears team.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. They're not just getting to the passer or the quarterback. They are absolutely stopping the run. And that's been the huge part of, that last year, the problem was they had to, they had to manufacture pass rush, and now it's coming natural. So Khalil Mack is just collapsing the one side, and the other side is just naturally collapsing, and then the center is just stout. So once they realize it's not a run up the middle, then those guys in the middle just collapse the pocket, and there's nowhere for the quarterback to go. It also helps that you don't have a slow Nick Kwiatkowski in there. You have Danny Trevathan and Roquan Smith. And Roquan Smith had some rough patches in this game. He had some rookie growing pains himself, but he and Danny Trevathan are both 4 down linebackers, and those are special in this league. Is a lot of teams wish they had 1 4 down linebacker, and the Bears have 2.
Yeah, again, you're going to expect some growing pains from Roquan Smith, and those aren't as aggravating as some of the other mistakes you saw today, but that again, with him, that was his 3rd game in the NFL, and keep in mind he missed a lot of training camp. So that's just going to be part of it, but you still see the raw talent the kid has.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he should be playing as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, he's still better than Nick Witkowski, and that's not a knock on Nick Witkowski. It's you need that speed. The speed makes
Right.
up for so many things. What else with the Bears defense is, yeah, they bottled up David Johnson, just absolutely just shut down that run game, and they forced Sam Bradford to beat them, and Sam Bradford was under pressure most of the time. And the Bears, after those first two, touchdown drives, the Bears defense really buckled down and played great in the secondary, and the pass rush finally got there consistently. And then finally, when you had another mounting potential scoring drive by the Cardinals, Khalil Mack has another, strip of the quarterback.
I just read something very funny from CBS Sports about Khalil Mack. You ready for this?
Yes.
Khalil Mack, first 3 games, 2 wins, 4 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovered, 1 interception, 1 touchdown. Oakland Raiders as a team, 0 wins, 3 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 0 fumbles recovered, 1 interception, 0 touchdowns.
That's amazing. He's single-handedly better than the entire Raiders defense. And I'm reading that the Raiders have locker room trouble brewing because there is the holdover players and then the new players, and they're not happy with each other, and they're not neither's very happy with the coaching staff, and there's some trouble brewing, and John Gruden is trying to throw that GM under the bus, and all of these bad decisions are on Gruden's shoulders.
Yeah, that's pretty ugly there. Ooh. And the fans are certainly not happy either.
No, they're probably glad that they're moving now.
Yeah,
they're all suddenly going to become Rams fans.
Hey, all aboard the Rams wagon. They're looking pretty good.
And while we're on a tangent, I want to talk about a play that is getting a lot of attention so far today. And it was the sack and penalty on Clay Matthews.
Yeah.
So he was penalized for roughing the passer. And the explanation was he used his body weight to drive the quarterback to the ground. Okay. Now people are like, well, you're turning this into flag football. No, I've tweeted this a bunch of times and I don't think it's getting traction, but here's my thoughts on it. First game of the season, you had when the Bears were already falling behind Green Bay and you were trying to score and it was evident that you're not, and you'd already hurt Aaron Rodgers, and Clay Matthews cheap shotted Mitch Trubisky. Complete cheap shot. So the referees in the league take notice. They're trying to protect quarterbacks. You cheap shotted a guy. You got only called for your 15-yarder. You didn't get anything else. So the next game, you have what was a borderline, in a lot of people's eyes, roughing the quarterback penalty. But you know what? When the league and the referees see you cheap shot somebody and it becomes a borderline play, they are going to throw the flag. And then when you back-to-back weeks have a roughing the passer call and you come through violently and throw the quarterback down, and he drove him down. I get, oh, what are you supposed to do? Pull up? No, but he really just drove him down hard. Then in the officials' eyes, because that was a fast developing play, a bang bang type play, they already have it in their mind that you have gotten these penalties. Suddenly you're a dirty player and they're going to throw that flag. You don't get the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I mean, don't be surprised to see this continue to be an issue, not just with him, but with multiple players. I mean, really, in the end, I think it just adds controversy to a league that's already very controversial.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I get why some people are up in arms, but you can't take it as an isolated incident. Is if Clay Matthews is hitting quarterbacks late consistently, then he's losing that benefit of the doubt. And you have to look at it from an entire perspective. You can't just be like isolated incident. It's when if you different sport, but a similar type of thing is when Daniel Carcillo was still playing. When Daniel Carcillo did something versus if Jonathan Taves would have done this exact same thing, Jonathan Taves is looked at as a good guy who doesn't do those types of things. And if it's borderline, benefit of the doubt, Jonathan Taves. Daniel Carcillo, even if it's way more on the borderline of being fine, if there's any bit of possibility that it's a penalty, they're going to call it because of the reputation that the guy has. Is reputations matter.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a thing in sports. If you're one of those people that argues balls and strikes constantly, then those borderline calls, umpires don't forget, they're going to ring you up. It would be kind of interesting to do kind of a study on that sort of thing.
Yeah, I really would. I don't know. I mean, you'd have to have like Elias Sports or something, pull that kind of statistics. But yeah, I just feel like if you just isolate this snapshot of what happened, I see why people are up in arms.
Sure, me too. Absolutely.
But it's everything happens it doesn't happen in a fishbowl. There's a context to it. And I think Clay Matthews is developing a reputation, and he subsequently he's going to get called for things when it's borderline.
Yeah, we'll probably not see the end of this.
No, and we'll see more penalties against him going forward, I think, because it's 3 for 3 games, at least 3 roughing the passers.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to actually the Bears, there's looks like 2 injuries in this game. Prince Amukamara with a hamstring, and I'm hoping it's not bad, because I think he's very, very important
Absolutely.
to this defense going forward. And the other one is Anthony Miller's shoulder. He had an issue with it, went back into the game, and then looked like he happened again. And I'm going to guess it popped out of socket. They popped it back into place, and it slipped out again because the play when it happened again, it was on a pass, and he was using his arm to kind of push off the defender, and just suddenly the arm dropped. So I'm going to guess it just slipped out of socket. I'm hoping it's not anything serious for either one. But those are the 2 injuries that you saw with the Bears so far in this game.
Yeah, I really hope Anthony Miller is going to be okay. Or at least, he'll be able to play again at some point.
Yeah, because Kevin White has Josh Bellamy got more offensive plays than Kevin White.
Has he made a catch this year yet, Kevin White?
I think he made. No, I don't think he has. I don't think he has. Yeah.
I don't think so either.
That is just a very sad situation. You expected that guy to be a superstar, and he's in his 4th year and just still not even making catches at all.
Yeah.
But I think the last thing I had to talk about, I mean, I guess, it's a road game, a trap game. You came off a big victory, and you're looking forward to Tampa next week, who has been offensively on fire. He came out flat in this game, defensively. Offensively, you're regressing from an already bad situation. But it's a road game, several time zones away. You just take the victory where you can, and you say, all right, we got the victory. It's in the books. We move forward. It's just like you should have had a victory against Green Bay, but they got the win in the column. Is you got to just put it behind you, work this week, and you're going to be facing Tampa Bay, who have been on fire with an on fire quarterback, but you're catching them on a short week because they play Monday and you're going to play them Sunday. And then you got a bye week after that, I believe. So,
Yeah, and they'll be at home for Tampa Bay.
so yeah, this is a game that they got to be up for and ready to go. And hopefully they learned a lot from the mistakes.
Yeah.
And they got a lot of film to sit there with Mitch Trubisky and watch and figure things out. Because you're going to have to score points against Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Absolutely. That's going to be an interesting game.
It's going to be interesting who's quarterbacking.
Yeah, that too.
I mean, I got into a little bit of a disagreement with somebody on Twitter about it, and statistically, is Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to come back to the mean of his, at least his career, if not his career downgraded to his age. But he's playing well, and you got Jameis Winston coming back, who you drafted to be your franchise guy, but he's been not unremarkable. But if you don't see Fitzpatrick coming back to earth tomorrow night, because you're playing a really bad Pittsburgh team. So you feel like it's going to be the Bears are going to be the first test. And if you've had 3 good games with a quarterback, even if your suspended quarterback comes back, do you ruin that momentum? So unless Fitzpatrick gets hurt, I don't really see Jameis Winston getting that start against the Bears.
Yeah, I'd have trouble seeing it too, especially with the Bears defense. So I think my guess would also be that it's going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick, but I mean, crazier things have happened, so I won't say I guarantee it, but that is my feeling.
That's my feeling too. But Bears defensive wise, they just need to shore up, because Tampa's living off of those big plays. You can't give up those big plays.
Yep, and that's going to be something the Bears are going to have to prepare hard for. Don't do that.
But the good thing is you're facing a 35-year-old quarterback. You should be able to get pressure on him and not have him run. But the bad news is, offensively, Mitch Trubisky needs to put on his big boy pants and lead this offense, because they're going to have to put up more than, 14 points, 17 points.
Can't rely on the defense being out there 24/7. They're going to get tired.
Yeah, you've got to at least put up 24 points in this game to win. And Mitch Trubisky, it's going to be on his shoulders. And he's had 3 games to show us what he got, and it's been blah at best.
Yeah, this is going to be a big one.
I don't really have anything else I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, no, I don't think I have really much either, other than the fact that I think that this game in Arizona, a lot of people expected the Bears to just trounce them, and obviously they didn't, and we are lucky to come away with a win still. It's weird because it felt like they played a much better game in Green Bay that they lost, but this game, it didn't feel like they played good at all, but they won outside a few good plays. So at least, I know this sounds weird, but we've seen the Bears lose so many games like the way the Cardinals have lost. It's kind of nice to be on the side where you could say we didn't play that well, but at least we came out with a win, because we've seen so many times where the Bears lost games that they probably should have won. So I guess it's kind of a refreshing feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take any win any way we can get it, but you have higher expectations, and with an offensive-minded coach and such talent on your defense, that you expect to look better than you did.
For sure.
But the good news is Green Bay looked like garbage today, and Minnesota looked like dog poop.
That was on fire.
You're in first place. Yeah. And while we're and while we're talking right now, it's at halftime of the Patriots-Lions game, and Tom Brady has 55 yards passing.
I've had this game on the television while we were doing this show. The Patriots look awful, and the Lions are just stomping all over them right now.
But the Lions will find a way to lose.
No.
They're going to line it up. But I think that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for checking out the show and listening. Anybody that interacts with us, always appreciated. Make sure you follow us on social media at ShyFanPat1, at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com. Hit subscribe, however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, the TuneIn app. Make sure you share with at least one of your friends that like Chicago sports to spread the word about this show. And thank you guys again for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes. Bears 31 to -7.